Welcome to the next part of my advanced full bullet character matchup guide. Today's video will feature Dabi. Dabi as a character is innately good at kiting you rather than facing you head on, if that makes any sense. He doesn't wish to play very aggro against you unless he has a huge advantage over you health-wise or in some other manner. This tends to be with like teammates' presence and stuff, but in a one-on-one, Dabi will tend to not want to play aggressive against you and will instead want to play defensive and likely stay back at his like effective range and use his betas to block your attacks. Dabi's beta will be usable to block full bullets alpha, but I've personally found it's pretty bad at blocking full bullets beta. Sometimes it does, but for some reason, it feels very inconsistent whenever I'm fighting Dabis, and it feels like about 70% of the time they get hit anyway. And it does not block the heal hitbox. So even though Dabi wants to play like short range and uses traps to his advantage, his traps are only like super effective against your alphas. Your gamma, of course, completely ignores his traps. The main thing I could recommend with Dabi is to try and like stay in like the medium range, as Dabi is really bad in this range. He can pull down his gamma in order to attempt to block your alphas, but if you see that he's going in for a gamma, get closer and punish him for it. Even though his gamma does interrupt your beta, this doesn't mean you can't punish him for doing that, as you can still do certain things, like wait for the gamma to go off and then use a beta, or gamma cancel it. You can still do things against Dabi whenever he's doing this, even if he cancels your beta's animation with the initial hit. Important to note that it's only the initial hit that causes a stagger, which prevents your beta from working. After the initial hit, you can walk through and use beta through it all you need. It won't cause a knockdown on you at that rate. Dabi. Another thing Dabi isn't very great at is vertical mobility. This can be used to escape a Dabi, but it can also be used to put huge pressure on the Dabi and his location. By going up with a gamma, Dabi can't really do much here, and if you come down with a beta, you're essentially guaranteed to hit him with a hefty attack unless his roll timing is on point. Sometimes a trap may block this, but I find that to be inconsistent, and something that Dabis shouldn't be leaning on unless there is a way to make it consistent that I am not currently aware of. Overall, I do think Dabi is among one of full bullet's easier matchups, as the only thing Dabi really wants to do against you is place a beta at his foot whenever you go in for your own betas. This is something good Dabis will do, and it will cause a trade, but you still trade positively with him here. You still have the advantage, even if he hits you with that, as you will do more damage to him than he will deal to you. And your alpha pressure is something Dabi can't really deal with super well. Not very effectively. Dabi versus full bullet. The only thing I would recommend is try not to fighting him in narrow corridors, so that way you can still avoid his traps. As if he places his traps in narrow corridors and you're following them head on, it's essentially impossible to dodge them in like well-played scenarios. Dabi tends to be a character that is played by worse players than usual, so finding a good Dabi will be relatively rare, but it's still important to know the matchup whenever you do find one. Dabi's alphas can be a huge pain for full bullet whenever he is going through the air, though you move fast enough that depending on the angle, they tend to not really hit you. They tend to fly right past you and not have the chance to hit you whenever you are in your gamma. You can also easily dodge these alphas, even if he is spamming them, with a well-timed roll. It's important to note that whenever you're facing his alphas, don't just spam roll. time your rolls in order to try and effectively evade his alpha. This will make it much more consistent when fighting dabis, and you will take much less damage than you normally would. I don't know why my controller's being in pain. It wouldn't let me roll there. But yeah, dabi, with his alphas, if he spam fires 4 of them in a row, you will simply have to time your roll and then do another roll afterwards in order to dodge the second one. But it's important to not spam roll against a dabi that is throwing alphas at you, as this can be very dangerous, and most dabis know how to make use of this effectively, since it is a very common thing that a lot of dabis end up having to see. Final thing I want to mention is that Full Bullet is among the better part of the cast for dealing with dabi when he is downed. Since dabi has his special action where you can't like easily just take him out of the game in a lot of scenarios. For Full Bullet, it will often require teammates from the dabi's end in order to prevent the dabi from dying. Since all it takes is 4 high-level alphas that can be done at great range, I might add. Or you can also deal with him by simply using a bunch of betas. That can also be effective at finishing a downed dabi. So dabi against Full Bullet, he will tend to only be able to get his special action off whenever you are at low alpha levels, and whenever his teammates are present in order to get the pressure off of the dabi. Even then, Full Bullet has such a good time to kill on him whenever he is downed that it can be quite tough for his teammates to save him in a team fight consistently. Overall, I would give the dabi versus Full Bullet matchup probably about a 60-40 in Full Bullet's favor. Dabis have a few answers to some of your key tactics, mainly alpha while you go into the air with your gamma, and using his own gamma in order to negate your betas, and should all fail, he can always throw a beta at his feet in order to prevent you from getting free damage with your own beta. However, you still have a lot of advantages on dabi, such as the ability to face him in the medium range a lot easier, since dabi struggles in this distance and Full Bullet is primed and ready in this distance. And the fact that even if he does trade betas with you, you will still trade up against a dabi. It's important to note to not let him kite you too much, and you should instead be looking to go in the air whenever you are trying to pursue him. As if you are on the ground, you are likely to run into one of his traps, as he places traps nearly around every corner whenever you are facing a good dabi. Alright, I think there's not much more to say on the dabi matchup. Next time will be Toga, which I personally find to be a fairly interesting matchup, so stay tuned for that.